Cardinal George Pell awaits a decision from Australia's High Court in the last possible appeal of his 2018 conviction for 5 counts of child sexual abuse. The justices reserved judgment at the close of the hearing with no immediate indication of when a decision will be released. Cardinal Pell was sentenced a year ago to 6 years in prison for molesting 2 13-year-old choir boys in Melbourne's St. Patrick's Cathedral while he was the city's archbishop back in the late 1990s. Joining me now to take a look at the case is Edward Condon, D.C. Bureau Chief for Catholic News Agency and a canon lawyer. Ed, great to see you again. All right, so can you remind our viewers, what is the basis for the appeal and what are those justices, what are they considering? So the basis for the appeal at this stage is the same as it was at the last, which is that the jury could not have avoided reasonable doubt in the presentation of the evidence in Cardinal Pell's trial. That basically they elected to convict Cardinal Pell on the evidence of a single victim accuser, but that the defense put up 20 unchallenged witnesses against his account, placing the cardinal in different places at different times, and basically unpicking the narrative of the one witness against him. And the Pell's legal team were telling the justices in the High Court in Australia that there has to be reasonable doubt in this case. Maybe you find the accuser credible, maybe you think he's a very compelling witness, but there's still got to be a reasonable doubt here. And what do you think? What do you think the High Court will decide? Any likely scenarios? Well, there are really 3 options here. They could basically accept the appeal wholesale, quash Cardinal Pell's conviction, and let him free immediately. They could, of course, reject his appeal to the High Court, and that would be the end of his legal appeals. He would be serving the remainder of his sentence, which is 6 years. Or the third option is they could kick it back down to the Court of Appeals with some sort of instruction about what they'd done wrong and what they needed to do again. That, a lot of people are saying, is at least a plausible outcome, if not the most likely. Mm-hmm. And Cardinal Pell didn't travel to Canberra for the appeal hearing. Any idea how he's doing? That's right. I mean, it's very unusual, vanishingly unusual, that defendants in these cases actually appear in person during the High Court appeals phase. But we have heard from people close to the Cardinal that he's doing well, that he's living what they are calling a monastic retreat in prison. He's currently in a maximum security facility along with mafia leaders and figures like that, but that he's bearing up, that his greatest suffering, we're told, is that he's not allowed to say Mass because, of course, if you're in prison, you don't have access to alcohol like wine. Yeah. Beyond the Cardinal's criminal appeal, what's the likelihood that he'll face a canonical proceeding? Well, it's an absolute certainty that when Cardinal Pell's civil legal process comes to an end, either with his acquittal or with his with a reaffirmation of his conviction, there will be a canonical process in Rome. He is a cardinal. He's still a cardinal, a sitting cardinal, as it were, and he has been accused of sexual abuse of minors. So there will be a canonical process. Now, ordinarily in the church, what happens is they let the civil courts take their course, finish their procedure, and then begin the canonical process afterwards. So there isn't a confusion of the 2 legal fora at the same time. So one way or another, that's going to happen. Of course, if his conviction is overturned, I suspect it'll be a fairly speedy canonical process in Rome. But the reverse is definitely not true, that if he's found to still be guilty by the Australian High Court, you can bet that there will be a canonical process in Rome, and it will be as contested as the civil process. Well, Ed, thank you so much for your analysis. We always appreciate it. Glad to be here.